So welcome everyone. And tonight we're talking about daring to dream. And I think this is a really important topic because I think a lot of times as we go through life, sometimes our dreams get buried and sometimes they get left to the wayside and we lose sight of them. And so tonight I just really want to focus on reviving those dreams and bring them back to life. So I'm going to ask a question to start off. When was the last time you dared to dream? So not like dream at night, but like dream about your future or dream about um, things that you wanted to accomplish, or those big dreams that you even had from a kid. When was the last time you dared to dream something that almost seemed impossible? So I want you to think about that as we go into this tonight. And my next question is, when did we lose our sense of awe and wonder? And I love this picture because it's this little kid that's mesmerized by these pictures of our universe. And I remember when I was a kid, everything was like so big and so amazing. And as I got older, that has diminished over time. And I think we need to go back to a place where we can recapture that and bring that back to life. So one scripture that stood out to me when I was preparing for this was, hope deferred makes the heart sick, but a dream fulfilled is the tree of life. And it's so true. When I think about, but what do I mean by hope deferred? I mean, like, you hope for something and then it doesn't happen right away. Um, and sometimes it may not have even happened years after the fact. And so going back to that verse, when that happens, a lot of times we get discouraged. A lot of times we get depressed. Sometimes we give up hope altogether that dream could ever happen. And we end up a lot of times just letting it go. But a dream fulfilled is a tree of life. And so I don't think God ever wants us to give up on those dreams. A lot of them, he gave them to us. And there is a purpose in why we have them. And so I don't think we're supposed to give up on them. We're supposed to keep moving forward and see that dream come to life like a tree. And I love this tree. It's like huge and big, and it reminds me of my oak tree in my house at my house in Kelowna. It was huge. And in the summertime, it was so big and so vibrant. And there was birds living in it and squirrels living in it. And there was just so much life. And this really speaks to me because our dreams are supposed to be like that for us. So what are the effects of hope, deferred hope? So I went over a couple of these when I was sharing, giving up on our dreams altogether. Like, that's a huge one. I think there's sometimes when we buried them so deep, we forget that we even had those dreams to begin with, or trying to fulfill the dream yourself. If it's a God-given dream, then we need to partner with him in order to see that come to life, in order to see it succeed. And sometimes we take the reins on our own and try to help it happen on our own. And sometimes we fail just because of that. And then another thing is burying the dream so you don't think about it. And that's a little different than giving up. Burying it so you don't think about it means like it's still there, but it's out of your normal thought patterns. You're not thinking about it on a regular basis. But it's still there in the back of your mind somewhere. And then the belief that will never happen for you. Over time, that is what happens, is that you'll eventually believe that it won't happen for you, and that you're probably beyond the point where you could see that happen for you. That actually happened when I was thinking about being an author. I thought I was past the point, and I thought I was just going to do just admin for the rest of my life. And I really didn't see much hope in ever achieving that, or like ever getting out of just a full-time administrative position. And then within 3 years of that, it actually happened. So I honestly didn't think it could even happen that quickly. So it's pretty amazing what can happen in a short amount of time when we just re-engage. And then sometimes we wonder what we did wrong. What did we do wrong that it didn't happen for us? Like, which missteps did we take? Which way did we go off the path? And so on the flip side of that, how do we revive hope once it's been deferred? And there's others, obviously, for both of these, but these are the ones that stood out to me. Trusting God with our dreams. Like I said, there's a lot of dreams that God gives us, and it's his purposes for us. So we need to partner with him and trust him with those dreams to see them come to life. Sometimes we believe that, or in order to revive hope, we need to believe that we're not done yet. And I've said this several times, but there's a song called Joy in the Morning. And one of the lines in this song is, if it's not good yet, it's not done. And that is so true, because God's plans for us are good. And so if it's not good yet, we're not done with that yet. Knowing that life is a journey and not all our dreams are achieved early in life. So sometimes you think you're too old for your dreams to happen. But I believe that it doesn't matter what age you are, you can still pursue those dreams that God gave you, and you can still see them flourish and come to life. And then the last one is being prepared to keep trying, even if you fail more than once. The only way that you won't succeed is if you stop trying. That is the only way to guarantee failure. If you keep trying different ways and different things and taking different avenues, you'll eventually find your path to success. So I have a question for you guys. Do you remember the story of Abraham? So he was promised that he would be the father of many nations, and his wife was having a hard time bearing a child. And so they took things into their own hands, and he had children through her servant, and God still made him the promise that he would be the father of many nations. And it was interesting because he promised that to him, and then he had to wait 25 years to see that happen with Sarah. 25 years. That's a long time for that promise to be fulfilled. But God knows our hearts, and he knows when we're ready to fulfill those dreams. And a lot of times there's a lot of work that needs to be done in order for us to prepare to see those dreams come to fruition. And he had come to a place where he was so trusting in God that God even said, okay, now sacrifice your son, Isaac, your son from Sarah. I want you to sacrifice him. And he did exactly what God said and took him up there ready to sacrifice him. And he had to stop him and say, no, I have something else prepared. And so it was interesting to me that he trusted God so much with his dream, with the dream that God had given him, the promise that God had given him, that he was willing to let go of it altogether. And I think that's a powerful statement of how we need to be. We need to trust God so much with the things that he's put on our hearts for our future, that we can trust him fully with it, even if it looks like it's going to be gone. Because it's in those moments when we have full surrender that God can move in the greatest ways. And Jeremiah 29:11 is one of my favorite verses. And it's carried me through a lot of discouraging times when I saw things in my future that weren't lining up with the dreams that I had as a kid. And I was just like, where is my life going? And it says, for I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord. They are plans for good and not for disaster, to give you a hope, a future and a hope. And once again, there's that hope word. And I think hope and dreams go hand in hand. And obviously, future is what our dreams in action, right? And so this really does speak hugely to dreams. And God has huge plans for us that we may not even know about yet. And this is why it's exciting for me a lot of times, because I'm like, I don't need to stop dreaming because God still has plans for me. Even if I have seen the dreams I had as a child fulfilled, there are still more dreams that God has for me that I may not even know about yet. And when I was preparing for this, this is something that God downloaded to me, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is so true. A shift in perspective is how we become dreamers again, not seeing things as they are now, but how they could be in the future. And so some people say it's visualization. Some people say it's basically just hoping for it to come to pass. And some people is like actually saying, look, why don't you actually, what would it look like if it actually did happen? But being able to see that and then work towards that is huge. And it shifts your perspective from, okay, well, this is where I'm stuck. This is where I'm at now. And I don't see a way between here and there. Once you see that full picture, you can all of a sudden see the pathway there. And then you can start going, okay, well, this step is first in order for me to reach there. And you can start planning your pathway. But if you don't ever actually look and see where you're going, how can you plan the path from here to there? You're too busy focused on where you are now. And so I think that is a huge piece to the puzzle of trying to shift from being stuck and losing your dream into reviving it again. And I'm going to pass it over to Laura.
So I just love everything that you already shared, Connie, because, it really is the basis of, deferred hope is the basis of dreams lost, right? And it's like when we partner with that, we really give into, just that mentality of, there's nothing else. It's over. It's over for me, right? And so when I was reflecting on this topic, the question was like, what stops us from dreaming, right? And I know you've covered a few of these, but some of them are a little different. And sometimes we feel that we don't have value and that we don't actually deserve the things that we desire. And sometimes that can come from childhood wounds, traumas we've had. Maybe we've stepped out in the past and then, it didn't work out. And then we had people speak death and limitation over us. And it really, you take that internally and sometimes you let that define you. Right. And so, if you've tried in the past and you've maybe not had the success you had hoped for, it can really impact your sense of identity and your sense of value. And, then you wonder, am I even worthy of pursuing these dreams? Like, am I able to pursue them in a way that will be meaningful? Something else that could stop us is comparing our lives to other people, because a lot of times, you might see someone who's further down their journey and, you don't always know the trials that they went through to get there. You don't always know, all the sacrifices they had to make to get there. And you can be like, I'll never be like that person, instead of them, be inspiring you to be like, what, if they can do it, then I can do it. Right. It's that shift of mentality. And to recognize that no matter where you are right now, that doesn't mean that that's the end of the story for you. Sometimes You might also feel like Connie said, you've missed your opportunity. And these are some of the thoughts you might be thinking. It's too late for me. This is another one I hear a lot. I'm too old, right? Like, it's too late for me in my life. I've already passed, the prime of my life, you know, or another common thought is it will happen for everyone else, but not for me. Or you might feel like you're too broken, that you have way too many problems in your life. You don't know how you're even going to overcome these problems. So how could you possibly pursue, you know, some dreams that you've carried in your heart for so long? Some of these even maybe from childhood. You know, what you are going through right now might seem too overwhelming. And how could you even put energy towards pursuing your dreams? Another one could be fear of never measuring up or fear of failure. Now this can come up, like I said, if you have tried in the past, if you have tried to pursue a dream and you failed, or maybe you didn't make it, or maybe something stopped you halfway through. It can give you this false sense of, just not being good enough. And, when we partner with that mindset, it will keep us from dreaming. It will keep us from pursuing those things that are on our heart. And those are the things God put there. And last of all, we might believe the words spoken over our lives. I know for me, I've had some things spoken over my life. I'm pretty sure you can identify with that. And words that were maybe intentional, or maybe words that people spoke and they didn't even know what they were saying, but they hit to the core of who we are, and it impacted our sense of reality in terms of our own sense of, you know, who we are, what we're capable of, right? Like, I was as a child told that I will never amount to anything, that I am not lovable, that nobody loves me, that I don't deserve to be on this world. And so when you have certain words like that spoken over your life, and you take that into your spirit and your soul, it causes harm, and it causes you to kind of question whether, there's anything that is worthwhile that you can pursue on this earth. Because, when you take those words as truth over your life, that is going to hinder you from moving forward. So, like Connie said, we need to shift our perspective. And if you think of it this way, your perspective can actually dictate your reality. And I've been reading this new book, and what he writes in there is so along these lines of what Connie and I are trying to communicate today. And basically his message was, in any situation in your life, you have two options. You can either allow yourself to be miserable, or you can choose to be happy. And this particular guy, he had just been through an incredible car accident. He had broken 11 bones, had his whole eye crashed in, had brain damage, was paralyzed, not able to walk, in a wheelchair. And he came to the conclusion that he could be miserable and frustrated and angry that he'd be in the wheelchair for the rest of his life, but he chose to be the happiest and most grateful person in his circumstance. And that's the same thing for you. No matter what you're going through right now, you can have the choice to be the happiest and most grateful person no matter your circumstance. And what ended up happening for this man, the doctor said, you're likely never going to walk again, you're likely never going to see again in your eye. They spoke all of these things over him, but his choice to, change his perspective actually caused his healing to go exponentially. And within 6 months, he was up, walking, doing all the things that he was doing previous to this accident. And so, it really does come down to our perspective and what we're willing to put our mindsets towards. Another thing I want to bring up is, don't believe that where you're right now is the end of your story. Right? Honestly, if that's where you are at and that's what you're thinking, that's a pretty depressing place to be, because I know even for myself, I have a lot of trials happening in my life right now, but this isn't the end of my story. This is just, some blip in the middle of my journey. And your future hasn't happened yet. So why don't you write how your story ends? And that's like what Connie was saying, like being able to picture your future. If you could picture your dreams coming true, what would that look like for you? What would your life be like? Being able to see it. And the Bible says, people without a vision, they perish, right? Like if you can't see what you're working towards, then, you know, you kind of just die in the circumstances and you just can't move past that. And the last thing I want to bring up in how we can change our perspectives is to take God at his word. Now, if you look in the Bible, and the ones that I have here are just a few of them. Go ahead, Connie. But here are some scriptures, and we're not going to go over them all tonight, and these will be in your notes, but I encourage you to go through the notes and go through each one of these scriptures, because when you take God at his word and learn to meditate on what God says about your future, then it will be a lot easier for you to pursue the dreams that you have and pursue the future that God has for you instead of being stuck in your deferred hope. We really need to align our perspectives with that of God. I mean, he's the one who created us. He's the one who's birthed these dreams in us. So wouldn't he be the one who would be best to be able to speak into whether these dreams are even possible to happen? And he speaks over and over and over and over again in the word about how he has plans and purposes for us, that his plans are good, that, he has hope for our life, right? And those are the things that we need to be speaking over ourselves, that we need to be meditating on and really pursuing in our lives. Romans 15:13. I pray that God, the source of all hope, will fill you completely with joy and peace because you trust in him. Then you will overflow with confident hope through the power of the Holy Spirit. I loved, this is the NLT, the New Living Translation, and I loved the way this translation worded it, because it said, I pray that God, the source of all hope, right? When you think about that, God is the source of all hope, right? And like Connie said, in order to dream, we need to be able to step into hope. And where do we get that from? We get that from God. And when we do that, he is going to fill us with complete joy and peace because we are trusting fully in him. And that's where we need to be. That's where we start. Like Connie said, she couldn't believe it. Here she was believing that she would never be an author. And then, she stepped into a new place of believing it was possible. And then within 3 years, here she was a published author, right? Like when we partner with God and we partner with his promises and his truth over our life, like there's nothing that's impossible for us. And he can exponentially, advance us faster than we could ever imagine without, trusting him in this capacity and really relying on him for the hope that only he can give us. So the question I want us to kind of meditate on or think about tonight is, how do we transform our adversity into opportunity? I know for everyone who's going to be listening to this, you're probably going through some kind of trial. You're probably in some kind of circumstance that seems a little overwhelming, that, you maybe don't even see the end of it. And how do we find hope in those situations? How do we find the resilience and the desire to move out of where we're at and see the possibility for our future? So we have a choice, and there's only one choice when it comes to how we transform adversity into opportunity, and that is, how am I going to respond? And we can respond in many, many different ways, but depending on how we respond is going to depend on how effective and how quickly we can actually move forward through these difficult stages of our lives. One of the ways that we can respond is, through victim mentalities like, why me, God? why did this happen to me? Like, why does nobody care? Like, all of these, like, almost self-pity thoughts, right? And we all have them. I have them, sometimes I'm like, I just don't understand why. But those kind of thoughts are not going to serve us. And those are the kind of thoughts that are going to keep us stuck in our lives without purpose or fulfillment. And the very fact that you guys are here on this call listening to us talk about dreams, I know that that's not where you're at. I know that that's not, you don't want to stay where you're at. You want to pursue the dreams that you have in your heart. There's things that you've been desiring, and maybe you do think or have thought, I don't know how it will ever happen. But the fact that you're here tells me that you wanna overcome that you wanna push past that, and you wanna find the answers. So, I have 4 points that I wanna make, which I feel will really help you come out of the mentality of hope deferred and into, learning to hope again. And the first one is to accept reality for what it is, right? When we get into denial, when we get into trying to stuff our problems, that's not the answer. You know, accept the fact of where you're at, right? Like, if your situation right now sucks, well, you know, acknowledge that. Things right now aren't great, but also know that this isn't going to happen. This isn't going to last forever. Another one is be at peace with the things you cannot change. I've talked to quite a few people this week, and a common theme has come up, which is regret, right? A lot of times we think back to our past, and when we have revelation or when we have growth in our life, we look back and we think, if only I had done things differently, if only I had done this instead of that. But those are things we can't change. We can't go back and change the past. And so, if there's things coming up for you, come to a place where you can be at peace with those things, even peace with the things that are in your life right now that you can't change. The third thing is be grateful for what you have. I know we've talked about this in previous webinars, but when we're focused on what we don't have, we lose sight of everything that we do have. And when I look around in my life, I have billions of things to be thankful for. And I think if we can come from that perspective, that even if we aren't living out our fullest, you know, reality of, what we want to pursue for dreams, I already have a fantastic life. I already have, a lot of the dreams that I had in my heart have already been fulfilled, right? And sometimes we miss those. Sometimes we kind of pass over them without even realizing. And, a few weeks ago, a friend of mine said to me, what are your dreams for the future? And at first I couldn't answer her because, I've already achieved quite a few of them. But as I got thinking about them, I started remembering, oh yeah, I have this dream and I have that dream and I have that dream. And it just started me on this new journey of, dreaming again, right? Because sometimes if we have achieved some of them, we can feel like, well, there's not much more for me to achieve, but there's always more that we can dream and, move towards. And then the last thing is, take responsibility for creating the life you want in spite of your current circumstance. And I'm going to use an example from my life. When I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, I was faced with a choice. My doctors told me, Laura, we don't know why this happens. There is no cure. The only thing that you can do is manage your pain. And I left that doctor's office feeling many things, but I had to make a choice. And I'm just going to read a short excerpt from my book because, like I said earlier, it really does come down to a choice. I left that appointment feeling many things, but the two most prevalent things I felt were hopelessness and determination. Hopelessness because there was no known cure for what I was going through, which meant that there was no hope of things getting better. All I could do was manage the pain I was in every day. Hearing those words was like a death sentence spoken over my life. What have you been told about your situation? Have you been told there's no hope, no cure, no remedy? Have you been told that you were born with these struggles and it's just part of who you are? Are you feeling hopeless about your situation? Feeling hopeless is something I can relate to. It's often a contributing factor to those who just want to give up because of their suffering. It is also the precursor and often the indication that depression is present. The feeling that nothing will ever change and you're powerless to do anything about it is the exact circumstance needed for those to give up on life. I had been there before as a youth. I knew that kind of hopelessness, but I was able to recognize it for what it was and decided I would not allow this to define my future. I would not let these feelings of hopelessness cause me to lose hope for my life. My resolute decision to not allow hopelessness to overtake me caused me to become so determined to find a solution to what I was facing. I refused to believe that there was no cure for what I was experiencing. Even if the medical industry or science couldn't explain why it was happening or how to fix it, I knew someone who could. I knew that God has the final say. If God created my body, then I also believe he knows how to fix it, the issues I'm experiencing. I chose in my heart to trust God completely with what I was going through and the outcome. And so, if anything you get out of this talk tonight is, choose to not partner with the hopelessness and the diagnoses and just the sense of, there's no way past what I'm going through, because we can choose hope. We can choose to trust God. We can choose to surrender it all to him and have him walk us to the other side. Hal Elrod said, "You are just as worthy, deserving, and capable of creating anything you want for your life as any other person on earth." And this goes back to that comment, like sometimes when we compare our lives to others, we feel like, well, I'll never measure up to, what they've done or how they've overcome. But if I can do it, you can do it. In the whole scheme of things, I'm just little old Laura. Like there's nothing, I don't hold any degrees. I'm not a famous person. Like I'm just any other ordinary person. And I've just have this tenacious desire to not let anything stop me, right? But it always comes down to a choice. It always comes back to, who am I going to trust? Who am I going to put my faith and my reliance on? So this is one other point I want to make here before we go into our activation. The actual definition of hope deferred means to put off to a later time or postpone. And to me, like when I think of if I had dishes to do and I chose to put it off for a later date, like that's a choice that I'm making, right? And a lot of times when I look at my life, when I look at the times when I have kind of sunk into a spirit of despair or hopelessness, you know, I was essentially making a choice. I was making a choice in those moments to partner with the things being spoken over me, to not trust God. But my question to you is, why don't we choose to hope now, despite our current reality? Right? If hope deferred just means we're putting hope off till later, why don't we choose hope now? Right? Because the Bible says when your dreams are fulfilled, it's like a tree of life. So, the longer we stay in that hope deferred mentality, that hope deferred space in our heart, the longer we're going to stay in our difficulty. But from my experience, when I choose to hope in the Lord and I choose to hope in my circumstance and I choose to look forward to the future and to picture what it could be like, then I start moving in that direction. The things in my life start aligning in that direction. And so my thoughts to you today is let's not put off hoping and dreaming for even one more moment, because we really do have the power to choose. So today for our activation, we're gonna, you know, try to picture, some of the dreams that you've had. What would it look like in your life if you were to pursue those and for them to come to pass? And I know that dreaming can be scary. We have this perception that if we hope for things and they don't happen the way we want or in the timeline that we want, that somehow we've messed up, somehow we've missed our moment, or somehow it's hopeless. But like Connie and I have said from the very beginning, let's dare to dream. Dare yourself to dream again. Dare yourself to picture what you'd like your future to be like. What has God spoken about you over your future? Some of that might come through prophetic words. Have you received any prophetic words? Have have you read the Bible and then a scripture popped off the page and you felt that it was specifically for you? What are those things that, have been deposited into your life that maybe need to be dug up? Maybe they've been pushed aside or buried for a season. What desires have you had in the past that, have just kind of succumbed under the pressure of life? It's only when you see through the eyes of faith that you'll start moving in that direction. So today we're going to allow ourselves to imagine what things would be like if you no longer struggled with the things you're struggling with. So what are your dreams? In our activation, I just want you to take the next 5 minutes as Connie puts music on and just journal. Write out what some of your dreams are. Maybe some of the ones that you have kind of put to the side. And, if you're like me and you've kind of achieved some of them and you're not really sure where to go from here, then challenge yourself to, imagine what your future could be. How would you want your story to end? And I just want you to write them all down. And then practically, from this day forward, like Connie said, if you can see the future, you can see where you're going, then you can start to see the pathway of how to get there. So to start making small steps every day in that correct direction. So Connie, you can put a song on for us as we I like this saying, and I think it kind of sums up everything that Connie and I were sharing tonight. And it's from Marianne Williamson. You must learn a new way to think before you can master a new way to be. And sometimes in the difficulties of life, the circumstances of life, we can allow our focus to be shifted from what it needs to be on. And like Connie shared at the beginning, we need a shift in perspective. We need a shift in where we're focusing our attention. And that's not to focus on our circumstance, but focus on our God and focus on the hope that he gives, the hope that he promises us, and to trust him with all of these things in our heart. And at the same time, continue walking towards our future, because what we're currently experiencing isn't the end. It's not the end of our story. So as we close up here today, 3 keys I want you to remember is hope deferred is meant to be only momentary, not a life sentence. And, in those moments, give yourself permission to feel the grief of what you've lost in that moment, but get back up and start pursuing your dreams. Number 2, In every moment of life, you get to choose the outcome. It's your mindset that will shift you to propel you towards your future. So, when you find yourself kind of, stuck in those places of defeat, stuck in those places of, shame or guilt or even regret, shift your focus, change your perspective, get a sense of, what is God saying to me in this season and what does he have for me? And number 3, no matter what others have said about you, about your future, or about your current circumstance, choose to believe what God says about those things. He knows better than anyone else. And Eleanor Roosevelt said it well when she wrote, "The future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams." And, you know, when you see someone pursuing their dreams and achieving their dreams, don't let that discourage you. Let that inspire you. We're all created in the image of God. We've all been created for a purpose. We've all gone through our valley of the shadow of death and our own struggles and our own pain. But it's those who rise up again and continue walking forward. Those are the ones that ultimately live out their purpose and live out their dreams. And so I encourage you, no matter what you're facing today, to, if you have to grieve some of those moments, then do that, but get back up, start dreaming again, and 100% rely on Father God to give you the direction that you need, because he'll give it to you. And if you feel that you have difficulty sensing his presence or hearing him speak to you directly, that's why he gave us the whole Bible. And all of those words in there are for you, and you can take them as his promise to you. So, take some time to meditate on those scriptures. And that's not all of them. You'll likely find more as you start doing your research. Write the most important ones, the most impactful ones, write them in a journal, write them on cards, put them up around your house. Let that be a constant reminder to you to never give up, to pursue your dreams, and to see the future that you want to manifest in your life. I absolutely love this quote. It's actually from my dad. And he said these words to me at the age of 19 years old. And he said, "Laura, your life is like a canvas, and your words are the paint. And what you put on your canvas becomes your future." And when you think about that, we can create whatever we want, right? And what you believe about yourself, what you speak over yourself, what the things you pursue in your life, those are the things that are going to manifest. Those are the things that you're going to step into. That's the reality that you're going to experience. And so I challenge every person listening to this. What is it? What life is it that you want to have? What do you want your life to look like? Where are you now? And where do you want to be? And start speaking those words over yourself. Start giving yourself affirmations. Start speaking the word over yourself. Start pursuing the dreams. Start bringing life to them, breathing life back into them. Those that were, buried or felt like they had died. It's time to resurrect them. It's time to find your hope again. Don't defer it any longer. It's time to live your life to the fullest. So Connie and I, as we close up here, we wanted to express to you that we're coming up to our annual fundraising event, the 100 Pledge Project. And this year we are changing it up a little bit. For the last 2 years, Connie and I have done it mostly as an online campaign, and have found it, it was successful, but not as successful as we had hoped. And, a lot of that came down to like algorithms and different things like that. And, when I prayed about this, God really challenged me to get other people involved. And so the direction that we're going to be still doing the same fundraiser, but this year we're changing gears, and we're asking for anyone who wants to partner with NOSA Foundation to help raise funds for all the work that we do for all the people that we help throughout the year. You can partner with us and let us know if you want to join us. But what essentially what will be happening is we'll be sending out fundraising packages to anyone who wants to participate. You'll get your own pledge project card of donations between $1 and $100. And we just want you to share what NOSA does with your friends, your family, your coworkers, your sphere of influence, and see if anyone wants to pledge a donation anywhere between $1 and $100. And you keep track of the donations. And at the end of the month, so we're going to be doing this from April 1st to April 30th. At the end of the month, you'll bring in your donation forms and all of the contacts and all the funds received. And we have, Connie and I have chosen, we want to bless those that choose to participate with us in this fundraising initiative. And so we have different incentive levels. So if you raise certain amounts, there'll be different NOSA branded products that you can earn for different levels of raising funds. And so if this is of interest to you and you would like to support us in this way, please reach out to us before the end of March so we have enough time to get you your fundraising kit. And then, then we'll all be getting out there, sharing NOSA's mission and vision, and trying to raise funds to cover the costs of all of the programs that we put on all year long. So we'd love to have you participate. You can contact us, if you have our personal contacts, you can do that, or you can reach us through info@nosafoundation.com, or also the contact page on our website. Connie, do you want to talk about what's happening next month?
So next month I'll be talking about stop striving, and the whole basis behind it is that I think sometimes we strive so hard that we cause ourselves undue stress and undue anxiety and undue pressure. And God wants us to not live our lives that way. He wants us to spend more time just being and less time striving. And in being more connected with ourselves. And as a result, we end up being more efficient and more capable. And it's surprising how much more you can achieve when you have that time. And so we'll be talking more about that a little bit more in depth next month.
Great. And last but not least, Connie and I do monthly podcasting a couple times a month, and it's about similar topics to what we talk about here on these webinars, but it's more conversational style, and we share more about our personal journeys and the things that we've personally walked through. And so if that's of interest to you to listen to us on the go, you can find us on Spotify and iHeartRadio, Google, and I think there's one
Amazon
other,
Music.
Amazon Music. And it's called NOSA Unleashed. So if you don't want to miss any episodes, also feel free to subscribe to that as well.